I will have a conversation about the movie Scars. My name is Bahram Sadeghi, and I have the great honor and maybe greater responsibility to be your moderator, your host for the conversation with the director of the movie, Agnieszka Zwiefka. And the conversation will be about, let's say, 35 minutes. And if you got more questions, maybe we can extend it to 45 minutes. And talking about questions, so if you want to send a question, please don't hesitate to do that. You see your screen, scroll down, and then you will see a section like a text space, and it's about chat and Q&A. It doesn't matter which one, just send a question via chat or Q&A, send it as soon as possible. And within, let's say, 10 minutes, I will start the conversation with you, the viewers, because before that, I will have a conversation with the one-to-one with the director about the process of filmmaking and why she made this film. And hopefully after that, I will pass your questions and your remarks to her. So, talking about her, Agnieszka, dobry wieczór I witam.
Hello. I didn't prepare my Dutch saying, so sorry.
No problem. I just said, hello and welcome. So, please take us to the moment, to the scene for you as a director when you decided to make this movie. When? How? What happened?
I started on my holidays when I was there with my whole family in Sri Lanka. And I remember the very precise day that we were lying on a beach, beautiful paradise beach, but up north, not down south, well, where all the tourists go. And I was drinking my mojito, and there was this guy on the beach who started to talk to me. And he told me that this very area, just 6 years back, was a place of genocide where, thousands of people were killed. And for me, this was a shock, me, a tourist, mojito, beautiful beach, and this hunting history. As a documentary filmmaker, I just couldn't let it go, this vision, this paradox, especially when I learned that even in the middle of the war, the tourists were flying into Sri Lanka and enjoying their summer down south in the Sinhalese part of the country. So on my holidays, I started to do research, and I abandoned my family, my daughters and my husband, and I started to meet with all these amazing people, human rights activists who back then really risked their lives because it was a very difficult moment in Sri Lanka still, with the regime very much in power, and which actually now is also the situation. But we used the 4-year window of relative freedom to film this. Because, what shocked me...
Yeah. Which year was it, by the way?
2015.
Excuse me. 2015, when the first idea started.
Yeah, when I was there on holidays and I started to meet all these people, and what I remember is that, human rights activists, people very well known in Sri Lanka, very established with connections to Europe, whenever they were meeting me and talking about the situation of the former Tamil Tigers, especially the women, because this was my focus from the very beginning, they were always sitting in places where we were meeting with their back against the wall, just so they could observe everyone walking around, going in, going out. And I'm talking about people who are really well established in international human rights structures. So if they were so scared, I started to ask myself, what about the others? What about, people who are not so well known? And when I told them that I would really love to make the story about former LTT fighters from the point of the view of a woman, because this was something fascinating for me. I already knew that Sri Lankan society is very patriarchal. So, the first question that popped into my head was like, what makes these teenage girls from a patriarchal community cut their hair short, take off their beautiful saris, and, just go fight for years, decades to come? And when I started to ask questions, I actually mostly heard silence. And the human rights activists told me from the very beginning, it's impossible. You will never make this film. That's why no one ever made this film. They will not talk. Well, maybe one. And this was the name that kept coming back, the name of Vetrichelvi, which in Tamil means Miss Victory. It's her Tamil it's her LTT name, not the birth name. So that's how I started to basically meet her, and I met her a month later, and that's how we started.
Yeah, in a way, correct me if I'm wrong, your movie was a kind of like a road movie as well, because we saw her traveling a lot. And especially you showed us how she travels. So I thought that's something that is important for the documentary maker to tell me, to show me. She's sitting on a bike. She's in the bus. She's in the train. She's walking again on the bus. It's a why was that point as important for you to show us the way she travels?
Because the film is a road movie, actually. She wanted to find her former comrades, the ones that were with her during the years of the war. But also it's a road movie into the past, into nightmares, into, many questions that one asks themselves. So in a way, it's a double road movie on a psychological level and on the very much real level, which also was for me important because it's not so easy really to travel around Sri Lanka when you're a woman with short hair without an arm. That's like a sign on your forehead, a former LTT. It's everyone knows that she was in the Tigers, not only because she is a known person, but also from her appearance, the way she walks. She wears pants, she has short hair. That's not the usual look of a Sri Lankan woman. And on the top of it all, without an arm. So also the point was to show how fearless she is in a way, because I think Vetri is fearless.
By the way, just two remarks. When you say LTT, you mean Tamil Tigers. And the other remark is for our viewers. Please join the conversation if you would like. And in order to do that, just scroll down and you will see the icons like space for Q&A and chat. Send those questions and remarks as soon as possible, and then I will pass it to our director. Just I will take about maybe 5 or 6 minutes to talk about the process of filmmaking, since we are at the film festival. You are a director, so that's your narrative. And one of the things that it really hit me, it was about how close you, as an outsider, got to your main subjects. And we saw people telling you, or telling your main subject, about whether, for example, they were fighting. One of the young ladies, she saw blood and she didn't know whether it was her own blood or she had a period. That was, I thought, they are trusting you and trusting Vetrichelvi. How did you, both of you, manage that?
I think it's a matter of time, basically. In all documentary film, it's a matter of time, of many visits in Sri Lanka. It's not like I came there once or twice or 3 times. It's more like 9 times, which was also risky at the entrance and exit from Sri Lanka because we were shooting this completely illegally, without permissions. Well, we had collaborators in Sri Lanka, people who were human rights activists, and that also helped because these women knew that they could trust them, and that was, in a way, a safer position. Plus, I think I came without judging them, and this was maybe what opened many doors, because normally when people hear Tamil Tigers, LTT, as they say, themselves, people think terrorists, right, from Western Europe especially. And for me, they were just women who made this decision. They were neither good nor bad. They were human, and I think this, not judging a person and just letting them speak for themselves, is the best approach you can have.
Yeah. By the way, one more thing about the process of filmmaking, or as you, the choices you made. I just, correct me if I'm wrong. I saw a lot of times that you were lowering your camera to the eye level of your subjects. For example, when one of the main characters, she was sleeping lying on the ground, then the camera went down. When we saw the small children, some very young kids listening, then we saw them on the eye level. So I guess that was something you did really. We were talking. Please tell me something more about in your own words.
Yeah, I'm happy that you noticed this, but yes, this is for me, this is the basic of every storytelling, because we need to see a human, we need to have an eye connection, not their forehead or their chin, but eyes. This is where the truth about a human is. So yeah, this is something I use in all my films, and I teach my students that camera on the eye level is something that makes you really look into human heart and soul, and this is what we should do.
Yeah. One more question about the choices you made in order to tell your story as good as possible, as strong as possible, was the subject of the way you let's say managed to do the reenactment. So the people who redoing the activities we are seeing. When did you decide to put that element in your documentary?
Mm-hmm.
And why? When and why?
Soon, because we discovered that many of the testimonies of the former fighters, especially the ones that were forcibly recruited, not the ones that joined out of their own will, are impossible to film with their faces. We promised, them that the testimonies will be in a way anonymous in some cases. But also, I pretty much noticed that there is a part of the history that Vetri is not letting us into. And this is the stories of these forcibly recruited girls, because I think sometimes it's too painful for her to even think about it. So in order to reach into also this level, we wanted to have these very symbolic, dark reconstructions, reenactments, which were based on the very much real testimonies of the girls.
Yeah. By the way, has your documentary had any screening in Sri Lanka?
No. Well, we have now COVID times, which makes it even harder, but we were not thinking about screening this film in Sri Lanka for various reasons. As you see at the very end of the film, a former leader of the Sinhalese army, the person responsible for the genocide I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, is now a president of Sri Lanka. So I think keeping it a bit slow in Sri Lanka is a good option. Although we have been showing to Tamil people worldwide with a link, the way we do everything nowadays, with a link. Of course. So yeah, we were sharing this with the Tamil community, but not like official screenings in Sri Lanka. I don't think they would ever be possible with this government present, because the only festival that there is in Sri Lanka is heavily dependent on what the government says. So,
yeah. Okay. I just repeated one more time for our viewers. If they want to send any question or any remarks, please scroll down on your screen. Then you will see the option Q&A and chat. And please don't hesitate to send it to us, and I will pass it as soon as possible to our director. Having said that, did you, I just wonder, in a way, why the Tamil Tigers, they unleashed so many young girls. Could you please tell us something about that?
Yeah, this is actually something that made me want to shoot this film a lot, yes. When I found out that there were teenagers, majority joining out of their own will, but some forcibly recruited. So this really made me ask questions, what they know about life at this stage. I am a mother of two teenage daughters. They are the age that Vetrichelvi was in when she joined Tamil Tigers. So I pretty much know what you have in your head at the age of 15, 16, and 17, the usual recruitment age of the young fighters. So, and this shapes your whole future suddenly. This one decision that you made as a teenager is a point of no return in a way, because whatever you decide in the future, you cannot get rid of it. These girls nowadays, they are at the very bottom of the Sri Lankan community, because in Sri Lanka it's very hierarchical.
Yeah.
On the top, I must say, it's still a white man. So my DOP, who is a white man, was the one really dealing with all the authority problems. Then it's the Sinhalese man, then a white woman, then the Sinhalese woman, then Tamil man, then Tamil woman, then Tamil former tiger, and on the very bottom is the former female Tamil tiger. Because, no one even wants them as wives in Tamil community, because they are scared of them. That's one thing. They don't understand them. No one wants to hire them. No one really has any solution what to do with them. And, these are women who are now in their 40s. They are still, they still have some vast part of life ahead. Some of them are even in their 30s, depending on how old they were at the end of the war. So, and these women are left without nothing, with no help whatsoever. And this was also, something that really made me want to tell this story, because it's also a story of what price you pay for the choices you make.
Yeah.
Not the main line, I would say, but it is also in a way.
Yeah. By the way, when you are talking about hierarchy in the society, there was one sentence that I wrote it down. I'm just quoting what I only thing doesn't change is racism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you could you just please tell us about racism in Sri Lanka, or for these women, how did manifest in their daily life?
Actually, Sri Lanka is one of very few countries in the world where Buddhism is not a religion of peace. So this is something that shocked me, because I knew...
Excuse me, I lost you just...
Yeah, I was saying that Sri Lanka...
Could you please go back, start again?
Sure. I was just saying that Sri Lanka is one of very few countries, alongside Myanmar, maybe, where Buddhism is not a religion of peace. It's a bloody religion, which was a shock for me, because I knew many Buddhists as very peaceful people, as the ones who want to join, not split. Well, in Sri Lanka, it's a different way. And, the Buddhists sometimes even call to set fire in the mosques. It's a very multi-religious community, multicultural, multinational community, but with one main nation and with one main religion wanting to set the rules. So this is what Vetri means by saying that something will never change, is the racism. And it's not necessarily the racism of ordinary people, because, we've met Sinhalese people who are very, good human beings and helping Tamils even. But it's the top, it's the politicians, and it's the church, the religion that splits and divides people in Sri Lanka. Yeah. And yeah, there are, many examples, even nowadays. There is this protest that has been going on for over 3 years. Actually, today is day 1,500 of the protest, where old ladies, mothers of those who disappeared, it's called the protest of the disappeared, of the families of the disappeared, sit on the street in Davunia day to day, night to night, and they just demand to have them heard by the government, but the government doesn't want to hear them. because they are just some simple Tamil women from up north. So these are like, these simple everyday examples of racism. And actually, these situations led to creating the Tamil Tigers, because, the Tamil community was always discriminated. So now, half a century later, we have the same situation, where the discrimination, even in these small things, these tiny details, is a very much everyday reality for these people. So,
yeah. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way you paint this picture, it seems, kind of dark and bad for Tamil people in general, and especially for the former female fighters in particular. Am I right? Please elaborate about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's there is no strategy and no willingness to help these women come back into community. They are basically left in their own villages, like Zuder, the woman without half of her face, whom Vetrichelvi met on her way. She's left without no support whatsoever. So this situation, over 10 years after war, is something very much disturbing, especially when you take into consideration that the current president of Sri Lanka is a person whom many human rights organizations accuse of war crimes, and that Sri Lanka is actually, to my knowledge, the only country in the world in which 10 years after the war, there was no war tribunal, no attempt to, face the war crimes. I'm not saying that my protagonists were saints, but, the terror was from both sides. So, and then there is no attempt to somehow, establish a new world, I guess.
Okay, there is, as I said, you can send questions or remarks to us via a chat option and Q&A. Scroll down on your screen, you will see that. There is a question from Bert, and he's saying, why are the Tamil people only perceived as terrorists in Europe?
Tamil people, I don't think so, but Tamil Tigers, the members of the organization, they have this tag of terrorists. Not all Tamil people, I wouldn't say that, but Tamil Tigers, yes. When an average European thinks Tamil Tigers, they think terrorists. Well, for me, it's not such an easy thing to name them. I mean, I know way too much about their methods, which were terrorist methods, of course. But the same methods were used by the other side. And yet they were called the army. So, it's also a question of how we name people, how we label them, how we put stickers on people, calling one side of the conflict terrorists and the other an army, whereas both sides used same terrorist-like methods.
I see. By the way, now we are talking about more than 20 minutes, so we are entering the last, let's say, 10 minutes. So please, if you have questions, send a question to us, because I have more questions for you. In a way, you just mentioned, you know more than an average European or documentary made about the situation over there. So I just wonder, when you dive in a subject as an outsider, I don't know how to put this question. I'm trying to formulate, a sentence like, what does it do to you as a person or as a professional when you have been in this subject for the last, let's say, 6 years? What's your take for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm joking very often that whenever we make documentary films, we create these new identities of ourselves. I have a Tamil name, it's Agni, because it's the 4 first letters of my real name, which means fire. And in a way, Sri Lanka for me is kind of like a second home country, if you know what I mean. I know every village, every street so well, not that difficult. I know the culture, I know the food, but it's also a hate-love relationship, because when you get to know a country, you get to know it from very dark sides as well. And I think this is the most valuable lesson that we as filmmakers can get, is that we really learn a lot about the life of someone else, just living it with them. You know, my previous film was about a Roma community, and now I speak Roma. I don't speak Tamil a little bit, but not not fluently. That's way too difficult language. But still, you know, you really get this inside knowledge, and it just expands your horizons, I guess.
Okay, expand your horizon. Yeah, and I have two more questions for you. You know, you said your other movie was about Roma. This is about Sri Lanka, but in a way, you know, these are how, you know. Let me ask the question. You know, just straight. What is your movie really about, regardless of the location, which is Sri Lanka? But what is it really about?
Yes, I think, you know, it's about, all my films are in a way about outsiders, people who are not treated well by the communities they live in. And what is it like to be the other, you know, someone different, someone on the outskirts of society. So this is something that for me is always a passionate topic, something I want to discover. Plus, the more difficult a community is to access, the more I want to access this community. You know, with the Roma community, I was also told I will never be able to make this film, not from the inside. And I said, yeah, I will, I am going to do it. So I guess, you know, these challenges, but also the pleasure, pure pleasure of getting to know a very isolated community is something that drives me to make films.
Okay, great. By the way, before I ask you the very final question, we have a question from Richard. He says, what kind of dark side of the country, of the Tamil people, did you get to know? Could you please give us some examples?
Well, it's many of these examples are in the dark studio in the story. You know, if a 12-year-old girl is kidnapped from her home and transformed into a child soldier, that's a very dark side for me. And yet I do feel that I somehow understand the motivations of these people. So, you know, and also the fact that when you travel up north, Sri Lanka, which I never recommend people going down south because that's the normal tourist destination. When you go up north to Mulavaiaka, Mullaitivu, Kilinochchi, these are the areas which are still ghost towns. You know, like you can walk for kilometers and you just see these holes in the walls. And it's even now like this. And we are already 11 years after war. So when I was there 6 years after war for the first time, it was even more haunting. So yeah, I think these are these dark sides. I could name many of them. You know, neighbors were killing neighbors during the conflict because the Tamil and Sinhalese communities were mixed. Nowadays, Buddhist monks are calling to burn temples and mosques of other religions. That's another dark side. But of course, I'm not only on the side of the Tamil people. I see the evil on their part too. And I think the biggest evil is silence, also in a way, because if you do not talk, if you do not admit, if you do not say sorry in a way and try to repair what was done, then that is evil.
Okay, so my final question is about the very beginning of your movie. I don't have to tell you how it started, but just only to refresh the the memory of our viewers. You know, you started after maybe 1 minute. We hear your main character, Vetri. She's saying, Tamils are gone, dead. So who am I? I wonder. There is a reason you start with this. I wonder, at the end of this journey, does she know who she is, according to you, after she lost everything, or she says the Tamils are gone, dead, so who am I? Do you have any idea who she is?
I think the correct question was the correct sentence was the Tamil tigers are gone, not Tamils as a whole nation.
Okay. Yes. Tamil tigers are, yes. You're right. So
because they officially do not exist, and yet she still feels one inside. Of course, when we followed Vetrichelvi through all these years of her, attempts to lead a normal life of a civilian, we pretty much understood that it will never be possible. So yes, at the end of the film, I think she knows pretty much who she is. She's a warrior, because she has always been a warrior, and a warrior doesn't leave her country. And Vetri could have left. There was an option. She was supposed to go to Berlin and start a new life, but she couldn't leave her people. And yes, I think she knows the answer. She's once a warrior, always a warrior, even if the weapons are changed into a pen or a word. She still is as a warrior deep in her heart.
Okay. Agnieszka, thank you so much for taking us as a documentary maker. In my humble opinion, that's one of the maybe functions of a documentary maker, to take us to places we a little bit know, subjects we a little bit know, but what we don't really know. So thank you so much for putting so much energy and time in your project to show us the different sides of this conflict. And I would like to finish up with a note you just said, very nice note. The biggest evil is silence. Thank you. And Jenku Cheer.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Okay, thank you so much. And I hope to hear more from you and your projects in the future. And on that note, I would say, how do?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.